Welcome to Africa Uncovered, where we delve into the rich and complex history of the African continent. Today, we're journeying to southern Africa's Middle Limpopo Valley, a region that witnessed dramatic socio-political and economic shifts, most notably with the rise of the influential state of Mapungubwe around the 13th century. For a long time, the narrative of this region has centered on the activities of farming communities, their trade networks, their social structures, and their role in the development of complex societies. But what about the foragers, the hunter-gatherer groups who also called this area home? Were they merely passive bystanders in this story of transformation? Challenging that very notion is the groundbreaking research of archaeologists like Chante Barnard, who completed her MA in archaeology in 2024 at the University of Pretoria, delving into the socio-economic relationships of foragers at Little Muck Shelter. This aligns with fascinating findings from recent excavations at Little Muck Shelter, as highlighted in research led by Tim Forsman and colleagues, revealing that foragers maintained a presence in the area well into the 2nd millennium AD and were participants in trade with farming communities, even during the crucial period of state formation. And we also have Justine van Heerden, an archaeologist involved with the HARP project, the Hunter-Gatherer Archaeology Research Project, and who is a lab technician at the University of Mpumalanga. Justine's work is crucial in making this history accessible, focusing on the effectiveness of HARP's Travelling Museum initiative to promote a more inclusive narrative of the Mapungubwe region. In fact, her work on this initiative won her the first place in the ASAPA Inskip Prize in 2024. So join us as we explore this fascinating intersection of forager and farmer life, uncovering a more complete and nuanced picture of the vibrant past of the Middle Limpopo Valley. We'll be speaking with archaeologists at the forefront of this research, Chante and Justine, shedding light on the vital contributions of these often overlooked communities. Chante and Justine, welcome.
Hi, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. I'm so excited to chat to you guys today. I think just being able to speak to young female archaeologists in the field and just hearing what you have to share with us. So thank you for being here. So I'll start us off with a little bit of an icebreaker to get to know you guys. To start us off, what sparked your initial fascination with archaeology? Was there a particular Indiana Jones moment, or was it something else entirely?
Yeah, I think you can go first.
Yeah, funnily enough, it was an Indiana Jones moment. I don't know what movie, I don't know which scene. There was just something about running through the desert, having a whip and a trendy hat that really got me thinking that that's what I want to do with my life, being chased by all these bad guys. Unfortunately, I have not had that experience yet, but I mean, I'm still young. Who knows? Maybe it'll come. So, yeah, it was actually Indiana Jones. And I think just my love for history and especially when I was younger, Egyptology really got me looking into the field of archaeology. And here I am. So, yeah.
And you, Justine?
For me, I can remember a documentary that I watched when I was 12 years old. I remember watching it, and it was one of these about King Arthur and his mythical sword that was pulled out of the lake. And they talked to this one archaeologist, and he had a string of things next to his name. So he was a classical marine archaeologist. And I remember running down to my mom and being like, Mom, I know what I'm going to be one day. I'm going to be a classical marine archaeologist. And she's like, cool, go for it. So I think that's the main memory that I can think of. But it was also a combination of Egyptology as well, because Egypt is just fascinating, I think, for every child at a certain age. But for me, it was that documentary. And from then on, I was very much focused on what is the history of our country, what's been going on in our past, and working towards becoming an archaeologist one day.
Thanks, guys. And how do we compare to Egypt in terms of archaeology?
Fascinating. Fascinating.
Wonderful. I don't know if you found any mummies, have you?
No,
not yet.
No. You never know.
You never know. But I'm sure there's a lot of other interesting things that are unique to a South African context. So I'm excited to chat about that.
Definitely.
So, the Middle Limpopo Valley sounds like an incredible place to work. What's the most unexpected thing you've encountered on a dig there? Anything from surprising finds to funny fieldwork mishaps?
Oh my goodness. So many.
Share them all.
I think the most surprising find was when you guys dug that one square at Leokwe Hill. It was a midden. And they dug it. We didn't really expect to find a lot because it was outside of our excavation area. It wasn't the main focus. But then they came across this one bone, and it was quite long and it looked strange. And so they called Tim as the project manager, and he came and he had a look. And I don't know what about the bone like gave him this idea, but he was like, he thinks that's a human bone. And we were just like, I think we were all shocked because we're not used to dealing with human remains. There's a lot of processes and administrative rules and regulations that you have to follow if you're working with them. So yeah, that was quite shocking, I think, just to be like, oh my goodness. And I mean, I wasn't even there. I was at another square, but I was like, oh my goodness, like that happened. So yeah, I think that's one of the most shocking.
Yeah. I remember that day mainly because we were waiting for so long to get started on our square. Because when you start excavating, you need to do a few things. You need to clear up the square, set up the square firstly, clean it up a little bit in terms of vegetation, and then you need to photograph, make sure that you're documenting everything properly. And we were waiting for the camera because other squares were using it, and when finally we could begin, one of our Oxford students that joined us, Finn, he just scraped or brushed one little bit and boom, bone. Now we needed to stop again. So yeah, that was very surprising. Did not expect to find that day. But yeah. We also have interesting surveying stories. I think my favorite one, which is the funniest one, I think, involves the three of us, so me, Chante, Tim, and another master student, needing to go and survey on someone's property. And then the rest of the story involves a lion and naked Americans. So we needed to go and do some surveying in the Middle Limpopo Valley area. And it was on this person's farm, but unfortunately we could not get into contact with this person because he was, I think, outside of the country or something. But we coordinated with another farm owner in the area, and she reassured us that she got permission from the farm owner that we could go onto the property and do our surveying, which is usually what we do. And she said, no, it's fine, you guys can go, but the gate is closed, so just hop over the gate, it's fine. So we're like, okay, it's feeling a little bit weird. We'll jump the gate. It's okay. And then we started surveying. And at some point, she also informed us, just so that you guys know, there's a lion on the loose on this guy's property. So just be careful. And we're like, oh, okay, no, that's fine. And then she also mentions, oh no, they are shooting an episode of Naked and Afraid on the property. And I've never seen Tim walk so fast while we were surveying, because we weren't really afraid of the lion. We were just like, no, we don't want to walk into a group of naked people while doing our surveying. So that was the quickest that we have gotten to a side survey and gotten.
Yeah, and I think the main question on everybody's mind was like, okay, which would we prefer to see? Like, which one would be worse? Which one would be better? And yeah, I feel like Tim had an idea. He was like, the lion would be better. But also Tim has this grand idea of, once he's done all his research, just walking into the field and being taken up by a lion. So I mean, like, maybe who knows? But yeah,
maybe his grand dream will be fulfilled.
Exactly.
He'll be become like Harry Warhutter from the Kruger, final fight.
Yeah, I don't think he was ready at that stage. So like,
not that day. That day. Work needed to be done.
Yeah,
exactly. Work was priority, guys.
But yeah,
I think any of our other stories, just that you have a lot of options. We always have a lot of animals coming on site, visiting us on site. So we've had giraffes. They were extremely cute because they were popping up behind the guppies. So all you could see was their head. So it was just like this family of giraffe. So that was very cute.
The hyena.
Oh, we've got the hyena as well. With that one, we were excavating Little Muck Shelter. And we got to the site in the morning with our ranger. And he usually does a sweep of the area before we start with our morning things. And we were so used to the routine, we just started unpacking everything, getting ready. Another day at the office. And then he calls us and he tells us, no, guys, come and look at this. And he shows us this little tiny blade of grass with the tiniest little drop of blood on it. We ask him, what is this? And he's like, no, there is something in the little cave in the shelter that we are excavating. He goes in to check, and it's a hyena just chilling there. And he says either it's pregnant or it just hunted the previous night. Firstly, I was shocked that he could track the animal with that little tiny piece of blood. Like, how did you do that? Like, wow. And then the second reaction of the whole group was, oh, can we go see? So then all of us file into this little tiny cave to go and see this hyena and still make sure that it's fine and it's not going to come out. And it was very nice to see it. And we all came out and he said, okay, no, it's fine. We can continue with our work today. Because we make a lot of noise while we work, so the animal's not going to come out. And I know for me, the square that I was working on, you are usually down on your knees because you need to get up close and personal with the soil. So with my square, I was down on my knees and my back was to the cave. And every now and then I was thinking, oh, if this thing comes out, I'm going to be the last person to know. But then you start working again and you see, oh, a bead. And then you're just back into what you are doing. So almost the whole day passes and you're like, oh yeah, there's a hyena right here behind us. So yeah, no, we've got some nice stories. Oh, and we've also had the other hyena that started stealing our equipment.
Oh yeah, our paintbrushes.
I think we left the paintbrush by accident. We forgot to pack it because you unpack or pack all of our things back when we end off for the day, and when we get back we unpack everything again. So we don't leave stuff on site generally. I think we forgot the one paintbrush and we found it down the road the next morning with bite marks.
Teeth marks.
We've got also a datum, which is basically just a stake in the ground with builder's line on it. Now we can't take that out because the datum point is very important and we can't move it. So this is now for our mapping purposes. And then I remember the one time we came back to site the one morning and there were bite marks on the datum because the hyena was, oh, what is this thing? Just took a chomp and no, it's not tasting very nice. So yeah, we've got quite a few of our equipment's got bite marks on it. So
we have a lot of stories. The one I also remember, this is from Mberry Shelter, is I can't even remember what field season it was, but all I remember is the sun coming up. It was so beautiful, and Justine was just like, okay, who needs to work? I'm gonna take photos of the sun for the next hour. I think that's the one thing that could take her attention away from archaeology. And even Tim was like, oh, it's fine. You do you. We'll use it for Instagram, so it's fine. You take the photos, we'll do the work. So I remember that one.
It was just a beautiful sunrise. I mean, it was just looking so majestic, and I thought, no, we need pictures for Instagram. We need to promote our work. So I was there, like tripling over the rocks and being like, I need stone scrapers. And then finding scrapers, taking pictures. So and we still use those photos today. So I stand by my decision that morning.
And then at the same site, I don't know why, because we work in the shelter and then sometimes we climb onto the koppie just to see if there is anything that might have happened on the koppie itself. But always when we come down, Tim chooses the most inconvenient route. Like, it's always bushes, branches, route. Like, it's always bushes, branches. You can't. And I don't know what every time. It's like he doesn't learn every time, and then you're just like, no, like I'm over it now. Like we can go the other way, but it's never. It's like, no, this way is easier. It's faster. Come on.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, when you see again, you have all of these scratch marks across your face and your arms, and you're just like,
And actually, that wasn't the fastest route because we've been on top of that koppie multiple times and we came down the same difficult route multiple times. And I've got pictures of Tim trying to get through this particular difficult part twice. I've got two pictures of him going through that specific part. I'm like, no, it's easy.
no. So yeah, no, because we've been on 10 field seasons over the last 4 years, so it's been a wonderful experience. And last year, unfortunately, we had to say goodbye to the Middle Limpopo Valley because the permits ended for excavation, and it was a bittersweet moment actually, like because it was the last 4 years we were excavating there, and I was like, okay, we're not coming back, at least not for research purposes. So it was really like, oh, okay. But yeah, it was great. I really enjoyed all my experiences there, the good and the bad. Learned from everything. So yeah.
And since you've left the Middle Limpopo Valley, where are you guys focusing on now? Where is your new area of research? Who's your new, what's the word, baby, if I can call it that?
So at the moment, we're looking at Thulamela, which is in the Pafuri region of Kruger Park, also like north of the park. We're surveying Thulamela and then the surrounding area to try and see what sites there are, see the different connections that we might be able to make based on surface finds and stuff like that. We're also looking at different sites, with groups such as the Makahane, the Makuleki, those types of communities. And then we haven't excavated Thulamela yet. We're still in the process of putting in applications for that to get permits for that. But we do have the collection that they excavated in the 1990s. And we're currently slowly going through that, cataloging everything that they gave to us, and then going to start analyzing that.
Yeah, because Thulamela is a very interesting site. So they started with, I think it was not surveys, but definitely excavations in the 1990s with Sydney Miller. So he was appointed by Sandparks to go and just start researching Thulamela. And I think the initial plan was to start excavating, but then there's a lot of stone walling on Thulamela as well. But it started to collapse to the extent that you couldn't really start excavating because all of the rocks were in the way. So this then led to them starting a reconstruction project where they reconstructed the walls using vendor ethnography. So they also employed and trained in archaeology masons from the surrounding community to help Sydney in reconstructing these walls. And in the process, they did do some excavations and they found incredibly interesting artifacts. As well as two burials that were, after a couple of years, reburied again with the proper ceremonies and permissions from the community in the area. But yeah, so the thing is, while all of these things were happening, Thulamela absolutely blew up in terms of the public and telling the public about this beautiful site that we have here in South Africa. And people started to talk about Thulamela almost in the same way as Mapungubwe, as in terms of it's equally important to South Africa's history as Mapungubwe is, because we know with Mapungubwe we have the golden rhino and this first state level society developing in Southern Africa. So it just it blew up. It was becoming extremely popular, and then after Sydney's initial work, nothing else really then happened with Thulamela again. So we have a very small snippet of what is happening here, or a small collection that we can work on. We have many spindle wools that's in the collection, and they were using these to spin cloth. So we know Tulumela, they were producing, they were busy, and we know things were happening there. We've got glass beads, we've got porcelain from, I think, China, I'm not exactly sure. There's evidence of gold as well. So we know these guys were very, very busy. But because we only have this little collection or so few artifacts, we can't really make broad arguments or statements about Tulumela because we don't know enough. So it was very interesting that it had this peak in popularity in the 90s, and then research and interest in it kind of died down again. I remember that Tulumela was mentioned in my grade 6 textbook for history alongside Mapungubwe, but afterwards I didn't really hear anything about it again. So that's kind of what we are or what our aim is to do with Tulumela now, is to see, okay, what is happening here? What was happening here? What were the people doing? And yeah.
Yeah, basically just to put it on the map again, so that it not necessarily has the same significance as Mapungubwe, but so that people realize, okay, there's more to Southern Africa than this one state level society. You have all of these different communities, societies, these state levels interconnecting with one another. So yeah.
It's very, very exciting. I think most of our listeners, a few of them will have heard of Tulumela. It's not widely known, which is so sad, actually, because it's so important. I think it could be one of the biggest discoveries of, or rediscoveries, of archaeology as it stands now. I just want to ask, based on the artifacts that you do have available, what are some assumptions you can make, or what do you hope to find? By the way, when are you guys planning to excavate Tulumela? What is your schedule looking like?
Okay, so excavating the site will depend on when we get the permits, because we're not allowed to start excavations until we have all the necessary permits from SANParks, from SARA, and all of these different authoritative bodies, basically.
And the surrounding community as well.
And the surrounding community. So yeah, that kind of just depends on when we get everything we need. And then I think the plan is to start immediately, because we want to know what's happening there, what's going on. And we would like to build to further build up the collection, because we do have a baseline here where we can work from. But like Justine said, it's not necessarily enough to understand the site in its entirety. And also, just in certain cases, some of the artifacts have been mixed, some have been broken, or they haven't been properly labeled. So it is a bit difficult to accurately state, okay, this is from this area at the site, so we can say this, and this is from that area. So it's more like trying to, at this stage, cataloging everything we have, and then trying to see, okay, where does this come from? Where does that come from? And then from there, we'll actually start to try and understand what they could have been used for. But with regards to what we're looking at for my PhD, at least, we're going to try to look at trade and the trade relations that might have occurred in the area. So yeah, my focus will be on Tulumela itself, and then maybe one or two of the surrounding sites. And then I know another PhD student of Tim will be looking at trade between Tulumela and then the coast. So she will try to look at the different routes that they took to get trade from international groups. Yeah. Yeah, so that's what my study, and then this other PhD students, we're going to focus more on the trade and the economic element of Tulumela, and try to see what role they played within the larger landscape, or on the larger landscape.
Yeah, because Tulumela is located right next to the Lavuvu.
Yeah,
to the Lavuvu River, which means it was taking or connecting them to the coast, to the eastern coast of Southern Africa. So they were very much involved in the Indian Ocean Trade Network, and we want to understand this a lot better. Also, with porcelain, that just shows that they had these connections as well. But in terms of your other question, where you asked, okay, what are the types of activities that we think they were doing in this area? They were definitely working gold. So I think I'm not exactly sure, but either they were mining gold in the area or they were getting it from outside of the area. But in this area, there was gold mining going on as well. So they were making gold artifacts. They were producing spindle wheels, which is made from ceramic. So if they have a piece of pot that broke and it's large enough, they would create this basically a donut shaped. It's like a flat squish donut circle with a hole in it, and they would then use this to spin cloth as well. And we know spindle wheels have been connected to the Indian Ocean Trade Network as well. We've got glass beads that were brought into this area, but Chante is a specialist for glass beads. Yes. But yeah, no, they were busy.
Yeah, so the thing with the glass beads is we know they didn't make it here based on chemical analysis and all of these other types of analysis and things that they looked at. Is the glass beads were not made here. They did kind of manipulate the glass beads, and then they would smelt them down, and then they had a mold, and they would put the melted glass, they would pour it into the mold, and then create a new type of bead, a larger bead, and this is called a garden roller bead. But so that is another thing of another element to how we understand trade relations from Southern Africa, or between Southern Africa and then other groups such as, or groups from China, Persia, the Middle East, is because of these, or the trace elements of these glass beads, we can then determine where they actually come from. So yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah. It really is. The more you start looking at this and the more in depth you go into certain analytical types, it's like, oh my goodness, you can tell so much from this one artifact. So yeah.
It's amazing. It's how it can actually give you a glimpse into the past, or more than a glimpse, it can give you a whole window.
Yes,
It's amazing to be able to look back. And I find it so interesting that that these communities of Thulamela were involved on an international scale. We don't really think about how big this actually was, but it is, and there's so much history to that. So all I can say to our listeners is watch this space. Because I think Thulamela is going to produce some very interesting finds and a lot of surprises, and perhaps I hope it will change our view of our own history. Sort of this murky past that we look into, and we have vague ideas maybe of what happened, or perhaps you guys know more than the regular folks like myself. But I think to be able to open up that window and see what was actually happening, that's so exciting. And I think there's going to be a lot to learn from that. So Chante, I want to go back a little bit to your research at the little muck shelter. So your thesis was based on your research there, and I want to see, are there any similarities between Thulamela and the little muck shelter, or the communities in the Middle Limpopo Valley? What do you see? I see there are themes of trade. Am I right? Am I on the right track with that?
Yeah. So. It's a bit difficult because I don't know whether foragers were present at Thulamela or if they had any sort of trade relation, because usually we associate these more state level societies such as Thulamela, Mapungubwe, we often associate that with farmer groups. And then in the Middle Limpopo Valley, it is a bit, or based on the research that has been done, we have seen that foragers and farmers did interact with one another. So in the Middle Limpopo Valley, we do see these trade relations between two different groups, the forager groups, the farmer groups, whereas at Thulamela, it's still a bit difficult to tell. I mean, it's always a possibility. We can never say it didn't happen. But I think because we haven't really gone to the area and looked for forager sites or forager shelters, it's still a bit like we're unsure. But yeah, definitely. So my MA thesis focused on trade relations, specifically those of foragers at Little Muck Shelter, and then how they might have interacted with other groups in the area, the surrounding area. And then my PhD study will also again focus on trade, but this time moving to farmer communities, and then seeing how they might have interacted with other groups. In this case, maybe more colonial colonists, not colonists, like
Settlers.
settlers. Thank
yeah.
you. More like colonial
There's the word.
settlers. Yeah. So, but like I said, maybe we could bring a forager aspect into that. It's just you would have to go out and actually see whether that is an option or not. Yeah.
Okay, exciting. I suppose you don't know, so you might find unexpected links that
Yes,
that you
exactly.
weren't quite planning for. And then,
Yes.
you know, who knows how these things work. Can you explain to us, Chante, just briefly the focus of your research at Little Muck Shelter? What drew you to the site, and then something that you found surprising, or something that you weren't expecting when you did your research?
So I started this research looking at trade specifically at Little Muck. It started from my honors year actually. Um the small dissertation that you do during your honors year also focus on trade at Little Muck, but on a very limited scale, I would say. I only focused on one quadrant, which is a 50 centimeter by 50 centimeter square. So that was my focus. And originally, it was a project that Tim assigned to me. He was like, okay, we're gonna look at this. Are you interested? I was like, okay, yeah, sure, why not? Sounds cool. And then as I went into my master's, we thought, okay, we can expand on this. So now instead of looking at one 50 centimeter by 50 centimeter square, I looked at the entire site, and this included 32 1 by 1 meter squares, I think. So now I was trying to understand trade, but with all of like the entire context of the site, taking that into consideration. And yeah, it was really just, I think from my honors, trade and trade relations really interested me. Looking at how different people interacted with one another, what they might have traded and what they got in exchange for that. From because in forager societies, they don't necessarily trade to get anything in exchange at that time. So they would trade more to build this social relationship. And then if they require something in the future, then they can kind of come to you, be like, you remember that time we traded? Yeah, I need a favor now. So even it's not always this economic thing. You have these different social, political, and then always economic thing, like an underlying thing that you can see looking at the different artifacts. And then at Little Muck specifically, the thing that we saw that was quite interesting, especially compared to other forager shelters in the area, is there were 496 glass beads at
Sure.
Little Muck Shelter. Just to give some context, Bellona, Maine, which is a shelter also in this area, has one glass bead. And Zombo, which is a shelter, it's in Botswana, but still falls within the Middle Limpopo Valley area. That shelter produced 18 glass beads, I think. So having almost 500 glass beads at this one shelter site was really significant. And I think it's something we didn't expect to find. It was only once I started analyzing the artifacts and going through all of them that we realized there were so many. And we're like, what's happening? Like, so yeah, the idea was then that these glass beads, especially because there's a farmer settlement located close to Little Muck, I think like 1 to 2 kilometers from Little Muck. So the idea was that because they were situated so close, they were most likely trading with these farmers, which meant that they got glass beads in return or in exchange for worked bone, maybe working of animal skin, so hides, shells, shell beads, things like that. Yeah.
Sure. Exciting. Do you think these glass beads were, if I can put it this way, the must-have item of these foragers? It sounds like they were, if I can put it this way, the must-have item of these foragers. It sounds like they were really, really, I would say they really invested, particularly in these particular these products. But am I right? Am I wrong? What do you think?
See, this is the other strange thing is foragers don't, or they aren't usually associated with glass beads. That's why there are so few at other forager shelters. Whereas at Little Muck, because there were so many, it was clear that they had to have a reason for exchanging things specifically for glass beads. The problem is we don't necessarily understand. So we know that glass beads were a significant element or significant material culture within farmer settlements. It did play a role in the development of social complexity, but we don't see that in forager sites or forager communities. So it is a bit difficult. And in my thesis, I stated that there is a possibility that foragers at Little Muck adopted that same viewpoint of, okay, these glass beads are a status symbol and that's why they want them, or that's why they traded for them. But it's also, they could have just been using the glass beads for something else and it was the easiest thing for them to trade with. So yeah, it's difficult to get a precise or an accurate answer regarding the glass beads, and it's something that kind of still, like, it's like, what happened there? It doesn't bother me, but the unanswered questions, like, okay, but why so many glass beads? What happened there? The other theory that I worked with is the possibility that farmers, or some farmers from Leokwe Hill, which is the farmer settlement nearby, that they were using the shelter. So they were kind of not cohabitating, but they were using the shelter where the foragers were. And these two groups might have interacted with one another. The foragers might have what's the word?
Dispersed?
No, like
Migrated?
no, they basically joined the farmer groups. There's a specific
Assimilated.
Thank
Intermarry. There
you.
we go.
Yeah, so they might have assimilated into these farmer groups and then use the site for ritual purposes. So it's difficult to get a precise or an accurate answer. But I think that's with most archaeology, like most archaeological sites, that's the problem, is we can make all of these kind of assumptions based on the material culture that we dig up. But yeah, so difficult to say precisely, but yeah, these are some of the theories that I presented in my research. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, you never know what you might
Exactly.
think that proving or disproving.
Yeah.
So again, listeners, watch this space.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chante, for that. I'd like to move to you, Justine, if that's okay.
Sure, yes.
So Justine is the purveyor of the Harp Travelling Museum. And I just want to ask you, Justine, could you tell us a little bit more about your role with the Travelling Museum and how the idea came about? So your MA thesis focused on it, and you're currently in the process of upgrading it?
Yes.
Working on it? That's the word. It's a very cool concept. So yeah, share a little bit more about it if you can, about what you're doing with that.
No, definitely. So it all started when Tim had the idea to make a traveling museum. So it was initially his idea. And when I approached him to do my master's degree, I told him, listen, I would love to go into a museum direction because that has been my passion for the last couple of years, or I've seen that is what I'm interested in. And then he started telling me about this idea that he has for this traveling museum that would be connected to HARP, to our study, and we would use it to do our community engagement, to tell people more about the research that we do. And I was like, well, okay, cool. It's like a museum on wheels. Yes, let's do this thing. So from there on, building the traveling museum, getting it ready and presenting it was my role. So Tim was the one who built the wooden frame for us, but I was the one who needed to go and stand there with the sander and the varnish and make sure it looks pretty for people. And then we drove up to Nelspruit for 2 weeks, me and Chante, to come and do the display drawers themselves. So our drawers, it kind of looks like a drawer that you would have for your clothes, and each or in this wooden frame we have plastic drawers that you can pull out, and they've got a lid, which means that you can open it up, you can put it on top of the drawer, and you can tell people about what is inside. So Chante and I needed to design these drawers and decide what people will be seeing when we are telling them about our research. So all of the artifacts that we used came from Tim's teaching collection. So this is just artifacts that people find maybe on their property or while they are walking, and they pick it up and they take it to someone who knows what it is, or to an expert such as Tim. So he had a whole collection that, because the artifacts have no context, and because they were taken out of their context, and with surface finds as well, people can move it, animals can move it, so we lose that provenance data that's very important. So from then on, these artifacts usually go into teaching collections that we use to teach students, especially when it is in a university setting. Sorry. So Tim had this huge teaching collection, and we then decided, okay, which artifacts are we going to use to try and tell people about the research that we do. So another very interesting point about the traveling museum is, because we have these drawers which are placed on top of each other, we can use it to teach people about the stratigraphic units that we use when excavating. Sorry. Thank you.
And there's a little frog hopping around somewhere.
Yes. Oh, wait, let me go get my water. Is that fine?
That's fine. Yeah, I can pause while you do that. No worries.
Thank you.
I'll just give us here is the. Okay, I've unpaused us, so we can go again.
Okay.
I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
Carry on.
Yeah, so because the displays or the display drawers are one on top of each other, we can tell people about the stratigraphic units that we use when we excavate. So basically, if you imagine you dig a hole in the ground and it's one big square, and you can stand inside of it, and you are looking at the side of your walls, then you can see these lines going up and down, and that's our stratigraphic unit. So it's different periods of time and soil collecting, and that is one unit that we use when we are excavating. So we use this to tell people, this is how we excavate, this is one of our methods. And also associated with this is different periods of time. So we then tell people about the law of superposition, meaning that layers or stratigraphic units that formed lower in the ground is going to be older than anything on top of it, because as one layer forms, another one forms on top, another one on top, and then the very top layer of the soil is the ground that we are working on today. So as we excavate, we start with the youngest things, and as we go deeper, our artifacts or the period connected to what we are excavating becomes older. And it's very nice for people to have this visual concept of, oh, okay. So that's another thing that we also could do with our displays as well, which was very cool. And the other big thing about the traveling museum is that it is interactive. So we take it to people, we show people everything that we are studying, the things that we are doing, and then people are allowed to touch artifacts. In some cases, some of the artifacts can be picked up so they can hold them. And I think that just brings a whole different connection to people trying to learn more about history and about the past in South Africa. So that was another very interesting aspect that we needed to incorporate when we designed the museum. And from then on, once it was ready and people could see it now, my role was to now present the museum. So most of the times people would come into contact with Tim, either ask him if we can do a little presentation of our research or things like that. So people wouldn't be asking specifically for the traveling museum, but because it was a part of our community engagement initiative, it was the main thing. So we would then go meet with a group of people or whoever we were chatting with. We even showed it to some of the university classes as well. So first years, second years, third years. And then it would be me standing there by next to the museum and being like, okay, so this is a stratigraphic unit. This is the law of superposition. Now we're going to start looking at all of our different displays. So I needed to present every community outreach session that we had with different groups of people. So, and then in doing so, I was also doing my research as well. So at the end of each session, I would tell the audience, listen, I am doing my master's on this. If you would like to please fill out a survey, I would appreciate it very, very much. So, yeah, that was basically my role.
Exciting. And tell us about some of your favorite artifacts in the collection. What really gets you excited?
Oh, it's so difficult. It's so difficult because I love everything. The artifacts that I enjoyed preparing, if I can say so, the most is our rock art display. So when it comes to rock art, we usually tell people when you see it outside, when you're hiking or wherever you are, if you see rock art, please do not touch, because the oils on our fingers can cause the rock art to disintegrate a lot quicker. But we still wanted to be able to show people what rock art still looks like. So we had this idea for one of the displays to make it a rock art themed display. So as part of it, we had some of the tools that they might have used to make rock art, specifically fine lined rock art, which was painted with paintbrushes, and using a mixture of ochre, egg whites, bloods, but water, a whole different mix of things to produce the paint. So we had some of these artifacts that people could see, oh, this might have been the type of things they would have used to make rock art paint. And then we wanted to give an example of this type of rock art. So there is in the Middle Limpopo Valley in Venetia, on, I think it's the Edmundsburg. Yes. There is this rock art panel that is extremely interesting for this area. So the main rock art panel that we were now going to replicate was a figure. So it was a man with 4 fat-tailed sheep. And it was very interesting because the style of rock art is fine-lined rock art, which is associated with forager communities. But now they are painting sheep, livestock, which was introduced into the area and was usually not associated with forager communities because they were nomadic, they were moving around, they were hunting, they were gathering. So the question now became, why are they painting sheep? And it was just very interesting, and it also showed what's the word? It was a very good example to show people looking at the museum how communities that were associated with the Stone Age, i.e. forager communities, and communities associated with the Iron Age, being farming communities, how they're interconnected, and how even though we literally placed all of these artifacts in boxes and in periods of time, you cannot do that when it comes to archaeology, because the Stone Age didn't end on a Monday and Tuesday everybody decided, okay, now it's the Iron Age. So that's not how that works. So there was this period of integration and connection and sharing ideas. So I really enjoyed this rock art panel, and then so we really wanted to include it in the traveling museum as well. So we decided to make a reconstruction of it. So Tim was walking in his garden the one day and saw this slab of stone, which was nice and flat, and thought, hey, yes. So we picked it up, and I took it back home, cleaned it up a little bit, and then I repainted that same rock art panel onto this stone slab, just one with acrylic paints, just so that people could see, okay, that the original rock art is red, this one's also red, and this one they could actually touch. So that was the one that I found the most fun to do. That was very, very cool. So yeah, let me think, any other artifacts. We've got a I think it's a copper helix in the museum as well. So it's basically where they took the metal that they were using and they strung it out very, very thinly, and then they wrapped it around itself almost like a spring. But then they took a second piece of copper as well, and a lot thinner, and then strung it in between those ones. So if you look very closely at this helix, you've got a thick strand running through and a thin one as well. And I like to point this out to people when discussing the museum, just to show them the intricacies of these artifacts and just how incredibly cool this is. So I think that's also one of my favorites. So that was either part of a bangle or a necklace or something like that, but we've only got a very small piece, so we don't really know. Then I think the other one that pops up is we've got an experimental archaeology display that discusses the subfield of experimental archaeology, and all of the artifacts in that display were constructed or reconstructed by an experimental archaeologist, Dr. Nicole Sherwood. So I really enjoyed that one as well, because then I could show people how are we remaking these artifacts and trying to understand them a bit better. And the artifact that I specifically liked about that display was an obsidian arrowhead that Nikki made. So she took a little piece of obsidian, she made an arrowhead out of it, and then she halved it or placed it onto a piece of wood. And she used this little thing as a keychain. So she drilled a hole through the shaft of the arrow, and then she attached it to her keys. And then she used this to cut the clothing tags off of her clothes, and she actually used this in her daily life. So if you would go and look at this obsidian arrowhead under a microscope, you could see use-wear patterns of being used to cut clothing tags. So that was just very interesting, and I think I really enjoyed sharing that with people as well, because it was just like archaeology in today's you can still use archaeological artifacts in today's context, so that was just fun as well. So yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. That sounds amazing. And what were the responses you got? I mean, do you think it helped people to understand a little bit more about their own history? I love the idea of a traveling museum. I think it's so dynamic and unique. And do you think it's made an impact on people's understanding of
Oh,
past?
definitely. I think the biggest thing was, I would say there were two things. The first I anticipated going into the study is that the interactive element would be hugely beneficial to people learning and understanding about the work that we were doing. So a lot of the responses were, because one of my questions was specifically just asking people what did they think about the interactive element, the fact that they could touch all of these artifacts. And most of those responses, I think about 90% of them were all, this was fantastic. It really, really helped me. Because it's one thing if somebody's up there talking about, oh, a hand axe. And then people are like, oh, okay, you are sort of giving me an explanation of what a hand axe is, but if I can see a hand axe and I can touch a hand axe and I can see, oh, this is the edges that they were using while using the hand axe, and it's just so much easier. So that was huge. People really enjoyed being able to touch artifacts and interact with it on a different level. And the second thing that I did not see coming was a lot of people mentioning that they really enjoyed having somebody there explaining this work, and it is a professional in the field. So if they have questions that are a little bit outside of maybe the focus for that day, so maybe outside of the traveling museum, we could still answer all of their questions. So that was another thing that people also really enjoyed of the traveling museum, is having me there, having Chante and Tim and the rest of our team there. And if somebody is busy chatting to me, they might be going off to the side and chatting with Tim and asking about this. So they really enjoyed interacting with people in the field as well. Yeah.
So exciting, and I think again such a cool concept, and it's so good to hear that people are actually engaging.
Yes.
And so Justine, last question, you're upgrading your museum currently. What's in the works?
Okay. So we still have the Harp Traveling Museum. That's not going anywhere. We are still using it. For now, I'm just making sure that everything is still intact. All of the artifacts are fine, because obviously with people touching it, we just want to make sure that we are still looking after the artifacts. So making sure everything is fine, and still showing that to people in our area as well. But we are now building another museum. So the idea for that one is to make it slightly bigger. So we want to make a traveling trailer that will be able to hook onto the back of my car. So with this one, it was small enough so that I could fit it into the back of my car if my seats were down, which was very nice. But now we want to make it a little bit bigger, but still mobile, still able to go into all the areas that it needs to be able to. So we are still in the process of designing this traveling trailer. What is it? Hood? The hood of the trailer, yes. Opening the hood of the trailer, and then how are we going to fit displays inside the trailer? Are there going to be drawers that are sliding out? Will people be able to get inside the trailer? Are we going to have information boards? Because that is something else that we want to add to this version of the traveling museum. Just a bit more written text, to give people a sense of space when they are visiting our traveling museum. So yeah, we are still trying to design, okay, how is this thing going to look? How's it going to work? But definitely we are having a trailer. We are using a trailer, and it's going to be fun. So yeah, and this one will be specifically focusing on Thulamela, because our work is now shifting a little bit more east, along the river. So we will be doing more content focused on Thulamela as well. But for this traveling museum, we will obviously not be using artifacts from Thulamela. We will be working with communities in the area and in other areas of South Africa as well, to make replications, to make us replicas that we can then place in the traveling museum, and that when people are touching or handling the artifacts, I don't have to be so on guard the entire time to make sure that everything is okay, because these are then just replicas. So yeah.
Sure. So
Yeah.
you guys also supporting community development at the same time.
Oh,
which is
definitely,
exciting.
definitely.
Yes.
Because with Thulamela, we will need examples of pottery. So we will be asking people who can make ceramics for us. We will be needing examples of spindle whorls, the little ceramic donuts, flat donuts. That is the scientific term, if you were wondering. No, please don't quote me on that. And then we also need examples of the iron implements that they were using at Thulamela as well. So we will, because we analyzed some of the iron implements that they found during the excavations and the initial surveys, and some of them are these intricate, at some point they refer to as a harpoon. I'm not sure if we can say that it is, but it's extremely, think of it as a spearhead. So it's extremely intricate, and at some points the metal twists as well, and it's got these barbs coming out at the ends of it. So we need examples of that to show people as well. And so we definitely need people who can work with metal. Because yeah, when it comes to replicating how to resharpen a stone tool, I'm somewhat proficient. But when it comes to making whole iron artifacts, that's where my abilities stop completely. So yeah. Yeah.
What a cool skill set though to have, just to sort of
Indeed.
say, yeah.
Indeed.
I can sharpen stone tools, guys.
Yeah, no, I first had to ask Nikki, listen, how does this work? What am I doing? But yeah, after a while, it's like, oh, okay, so this is how you flake. This is how you flake a thing. Yeah.
So not only are you studying history, you're living it out.
Indeed,
Exactly.
yes.
Well, guys, thank you so much. I just have one last question for both of you. And I hope by now that our readers are completely captivated by archaeology. I think you should be, our listeners, sorry. I hope by now our listeners are completely captivated by archaeology. Are there any books or documentaries or museums that Justine and Chante, you would recommend to learn more about this field and the work you're doing? Obviously, the Travelling Museum is one, but you have to come to Nelspruit for that.
So in terms of the traveling museum, if people would want to see what's going on, if this sounded interesting, we do have a YouTube video up for the traveling museum. So it's under the title Harp's Traveling Museum, so just HARP's Traveling Museum, and then you will see me there introducing the traveling museum and going through each of the displays. So if people would like to see it, they can definitely go visit us there. Then in terms of books, documentaries.
Well, for a documentary, Tim recently he was recently interviewed. The the people who did the interview, they did it specifically for the History Channel. I'm not sure what the documentary's name is. It's something like I'm gonna lie to you if I tell you now. I will find it and send it to you.
I can edit that one in, don't worry.
Okay,
I
we
can
can
find
do
it and
that.
just mention it.
But yeah, so it's quite short, but in this interview of this documentary, they do show images of Thulamela, and then Tim talks about what we're trying to achieve at this site, what is the overall objectives and aims of this project. And we were also informed that it is in the running for a prize, like
An award.
yeah. Something like that. So I think that could be a great documentary to look at. And then I don't know about any books specifically, but maybe Tim's articles, like Tim Forsman's articles, and then we'll also gradually start publishing more on the area as we do the research and
most of these are all accessible on Google Scholar. So if people just go to Google, type in Google Scholar, and in that Google Scholar search bar, just type in Tim Forsman, you will see all of his Thulamela related articles and his work in the middle of Popo Valley as well will pop up. Somebody else to go and look at is Peter Delius. He is also an historian that we are collaborating with as well for the Thulamela project. So he also has a bunch of work specifically for Mpumalanga as well. It's very, very interesting stuff. He's also been writing with Tim on Thulamela as well. The other person is Linnell. What is her surname?
Don't know.
We will edit that in.
Okay, edit that in.
Yes. So Peter's got a book out specifically about the archaeology in Mpumalanga as well. We can get that name for you as well.
It's Mpumalanga. That's the book's name.
It's
Mpumalanga by Peter Delius.
By Peter Delius. Yes.
That's there. There's something else. Mpumalanga History and Heritage by Peter Delius. It's also a very interesting read. And then mainly the articles as well. People can follow us there. I've got an article out with Tim as well about the traveling museum, where I talk a little bit more about my results and what people thought and how we can improve the museum going forward. Chante has also got a few papers on her research as well, and we try to make it as accessible to people as possible. So yes,
wonderful. And you guys, just to finish off, also have an Instagram page and a blog, as far as I know, for the HARP project.
Yes, we do. We do. So we do have an Instagram page for HARP. So it is. I'll just need to go and make sure. Because it's HARP project, but without the second P. There's only one P. And yes, we then also have a website at the same handle, where we try to regularly update people on what we are doing, where are we going, what are we excavating. Yeah. So it's just HARP, full stop, ROJECT. So our website is exactly the same, and as we move on to doing our work at Thulamela, we are still keeping up with what is happening with the HARP project as well, because even though our excavations ended, we are still sorting through all of the material that we excavated, and it does take time for research to get out to the public once excavations have stopped. So even though we are starting with a project that is now focusing on Thulamela, we don't want people to think, oh, okay, so all of the things at HARP, that's basically done. No. We're still doing a lot of work, and we love to keep people updated about what we are doing and our lab shenanigans. So
I've seen the Instagram page, and I can definitely recommend it. It is so much fun. I especially like the what would you say, parodies of books and movies.
Bad album cover photos.
Yes. So great.
We love doing those. So I think it started on the first trip where Tim got the idea to make album cover photos essentially, but make them bad, make them easy. So every trip we do, we see, okay, what is the running theme going through of this specific excavation season, and then we try and formulate a theme around that. So we've got depth leopard. I remember the one.
there's depth effort. There's one based on Narnia, which is something like the
Yes.
dormouse, the lion, and the
spade.
the spade.
all based on things that happened during that.
Because I don't know where the lion came from, but one of our honor students now, Tim and them
Prank.
we pranked some of the students who came to the field. Tim put a speaker there, and then the roar of a lion, so it sounded like the lion was in the camp. And one of the honor students, he grabbed his spade and he just like stood there. He was ready to fight this lion.
He was ready to defend us all. So,
but
You guys know you have backup.
indeed, no, definitely.
but through all of this, he was just like, I'm so scared, and that's where the dormouse aspect came in. So yeah, we honestly we try to make it different for each field season, but keep it to a certain theme. Yeah.
Oh, Game of Stones is the other one we have. Love that one.
That's great.
Yeah. So all of us are just holding up our crowns and trying to create a throne. We've got one with aliens. So just a lot. That one was actually, I think, one of my favorites because where we were staying, there was a water tower that was shaped like a football, and it was just looking very alien-like because it's this. If you look on the horizon, it's just bush, water tower, bush. So it looked so out of place. And then we thought, hey, why don't we do something alien-like? So we all made tinfoil hats for ourselves, and then we trudged out a little bit outside of the camp to go and take this photo. And one of the guys had quite curly hair, and he looked like that one person that's like, it's aliens. I can't remember the name of the man, but it was so funny. So we sat him down in the middle on a chair, and we just told him to make this dramatic, like, it's aliens pose. And then all of us were just standing around him, or like the one was us standing around him, the others was us hiding in different parts of the bush, just looking very straight-faced at the camera with all of these tinfoil hats on our heads. And then one of the groundskeepers, poor shame, I feel so bad for the guy because he came out and was like, guys, you need to be back in the camp because they are wild animals here. And we're like, we are so sorry, we will go in momentarily. Yes. But I was just trying to imagine being in this man's shoes and all of these people running around with tinfoil hats and trying to take a picture in the middle of the bush
with no context.
Please, can you guys come inside? This is unsafe.
But also, first thing you point out is not the fact that you're wearing tinfoil hats.
No,
like that it's not safe, guys. Whatever you do it, just keep it inside the camp.
But I also don't think that helped the idea that archaeology does not focus on aliens and everything. Like, yeah.
Yes.
So, but yeah, no.
Oh my goodness. That's so funny. Thank you for sharing that, guys. Oh my goodness, my cheeks actually hurt. So thank you to all our listeners, and I hope you learned something today, and thank you Chante and Justine for sitting with me and just having a great conversation. It was so much fun.
Yeah, thank you. This was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, we really enjoyed it. Thank you so much again.